on Lifeguards Off Duty are those of its hosts and guests exclusively. They do not represent any entity, organization, or municipality.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Michael Katchmar,
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Sean.
and this is Lifeguards Off Duty with Dr. Michael Katchmar, the Jersey Shore #1 lifeguard-themed video podcast.
Watch us on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook Live. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever streaming service you prefer.
If you would like to contact us, send an email to drkatchmar@icloud.com. Follow us on Instagram at lg.association.
All right, let's get started.
Let's start the show.
Let's do it.
She said they're gonna lock you up for killing me tonight.
Windows open. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Michael Katchmar. Welcome to Lifeguards Off Duty. Today's date is February 28th, year of our Lord 2023.
I'm impressed by how quickly you snap into character.
Yeah.
It's like bang.
So we have our, see, now we changed the cameras around. So we have Tyler.
How's everyone doing today?
And let me see if I got the right camera here. We have Sean. Ooh, that was
Hey,
pretty
guys.
good.
Well done.
And we have a guest today. Who wants to introduce our guest?
Trish,
you want
Devoe.
to lift her camera up a little bit? No, you don't do it.
Okay.
Just a little bit technical here.
We have Trish
Good.
Devoe with us today. She is a volunteer with the Marine Mammal Stranding Center and a naturalist for Miss Belmar, a whale watching charter. Catchmar, I can't get this. You gotta deal with it.
Don't worry about it.
Fine.
Oh, no, it's not.
It's fine.
No, you turned it. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. There you go. Great. So, go ahead. Anyway,
Sean, back to what you were saying.
so go
about
ahead,
our
Sean.
guest.
I had a joke lined up. I was going to ask if that makes you Miss Belmar, but it got the punchline got ruined.
The Royal Miss Belmar, or maybe the Miss Belmar Princess.
Is that the name of the boat or just the company?
Yes, so the company has two boats. There's the Royal Miss Belmar and the Miss Belmar Princess.
And what is the whale watching charter season in New Jersey?
So usually we begin around the end of March. It depends. We wait to see when the whales really start coming back into the area, anywhere around the end of March, early April. And then it runs until about November. Really peak in the summer, and in the fall is really the peak season.
I heard this year was like a lot of whales more than ever this summer.
Yes, we really did have a great year this year. We had consistent sightings nearly on every trip. You know, so we really did see a lot of whales. We added a lot of whales into the humpback whale catalog, and it was a great season, really great season.
Yeah, the Miss Belmar says it's something about like 90% chance of seeing whales every time, 1 to 5 whales at least. It sounds really exciting.
And it's very exciting.
You
Never
see-
gets old, ever great.
Mason, you see anything else besides whales?
Sure, of course.
What else
we
do you
do.
see out there? Tell
So
me.
we see a lot of the things that you see off the beach. You know, we see skates and we see giant schools of bunkerfish, Atlantic menhaden. Sometimes we
Porpoise, right?
Yes, we see bottlenose dolphins. Sometimes we see sharks.
Are you
Sometimes, what else do we see? Giant sunfish.
Yeah, have you seen sunfish? I haven't seen one in a long,
Yeah.
long time.
We saw a really large one this year.
Like
Really
how
large
big?
one. Oh my gosh, I
They're-
don't know how to estimate. Very
they're-
big,
they're-
like bigger than this table.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yes,
really?
very large. Yes.
Yeah, they're like they could be like the size of a stove. They're actually, long, like they're and kind of thin. You know, I actually hit one with my boat once. I didn't do it purposely. I was at the Barnegat Ridge, which is a low area, and there was all kinds of bluefin tuna up there. And we were finished fishing, and we took off. And I got up on plane. And when I had a big fishing boat, and when you get up on plane, there's a little bit of time where you can't see in front of you, but there's nobody out there. I mean, I didn't. There's no boats, and I had radar and everything. And all of a sudden, bang! And I hit something.
You hit it.
Yeah, and my father, he goes, "You killed him," like he thought it was some guy, And what it was, and I saw the blood, I felt so bad. I went back, but I didn't see it, and it's just one of those things. It's like hitting a squirrel, I felt terrible. There's nothing I could do, and so what I learned from that, I never got off plane on the ridge anymore. So what I did is when I went back there, it's about 14 miles out. And it's two plateaus out there. I don't know if you've ever been out to the Barnegat Ridge, but that's where, there could be fish. But it's a long ride for you guys.
Yeah.
So then I just never, I took it real slow. getting, because there's a lot of fish there. What happens is it upwells, and then so it attracts a lot of fish.
Right.
So that's pretty neat. And you guys don't bird watch at all? No?
Well, that's an interesting question. A lot of birders, what we call birders, like to come on the boat. They're not as interested in the whales, but we do see a lot of the pelagic birds.
Yeah.
So I'm not very well versed in the birds at all, though.
Like, what birds would you see out there?
Okay, so we see, oh my gosh.
Just put you on the spot.
Pelicans.
We definitely see pelicans.
Pelicans.
And we see,
Ospreys?
We see osprey, and then there's another one, oh my God, gannets and bald eagles.
All the way out there?
Yeah, we see bald eagles.
Oh, wow.
Right over the ocean.
Yeah, they go fishing out there.
You know what? We often see them leaving the river. We see them leaving the river by the Coast Guard station. Oftentimes they're up on the radio tower. So we see bald eagles there often.
There's actually a bald eagle nest off of, what's the road, going, what bridge is it? Not the one before Manalocan Bridge. You know where the Manalocan Bridge is?
Oh, sure.
So there's a marina right on the other side, and you go there, and there's a bald eagle right there. There's a couple of them in our area. So they'll probably go out there fishing, so.
So we brought Trish on today to talk about whales, but in a different way today. We want to just talk about how they are an important part of New Jersey, East Coast ecosystem. So do you personally, like, is whales watching something that you enjoy, like, as just whales or just fish in general? Like, why whales?
Whales are amazing. I love whales. I love dolphins. They're just such intelligent, beautiful mammals. And, to be able to be on a whale watching boat and to share my knowledge about the humpback whales and the dolphins it's just such a blessing. I absolutely love it. So exciting.
I don't think we said it, but Trish is the mother of Nico Devoe. We had him on the show earlier this year. She actually had a great monologue going with it. Well, she was on the phone. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
I'm sure Nico remembers.
Nico remembers for sure.
So Trish, let me ask you: when you do these things, how many people are on the boat usually? What can they carry? How many people could go out?
So I believe the Royal holds about 125 passengers. We don't like to overfill the boat, so usually we'll go with about 100 or so. So
Wow.
people have plenty of room to move around.
How big is the boat?
It's 125 feet, I think.
Oh, okay. So, you guys go out every day? Or
115 maybe.
you guys go out every day, or is it,
Yes, in the peak season, yes, we go. We start out on the weekends, in the spring because kids are still in school. But once the summer comes, kids are out of school, we go every day,
Wow.
about 2 trips a day. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty good.
What species can people expect to see on the charter?
So that's a great question. Most often we see humpback whales, Megaterra novangeli for the science people, which means big wing New England. That's the scientific name for humpback whales. We also see on occasion fin whales, minke whales, and of course bottlenose dolphins, which you may know are actually whales. Dolphins are actually whales. They're the toothed whales.
And killer whales, right?
We don't see killer whales.
No, but
here.
they're also dolphins.
Yes, correct. Killer whales are dolphins, correct, and dolphins are whales.
So Trish, let me ask you this: we were before you came in here, we were talking about this. So the whales are washing up now, but when I thought in the wintertime they're south, and in the summer they come back up to the north. So why are they around even now? So what's their migration pattern? Or
Right.
some stick around, some don't. Like
Yeah.
the geese, like most of them go south, but some stay, here. So what's the deal? Like, where, generally speaking, what's their season?
Right. So humpback whales are a migratory species, and their breeding and calving grounds are in the Caribbean, and that season is from about December to about March or April. So they travel north to the feeding grounds, and they get here around March, and during the feeding season, March to November. And but actually, it's very interesting because the Jersey Shore is not one of the main feeding grounds for humpback whales. So the main feeding grounds are the Gulf of Maine, Canada, Greenland, Iceland, and Norway.
In the summertime.
Correct. The feeding season runs in the summer,
Right.
spring to summer.
Right.
So the whales migrate from the Caribbean, from the warmer waters, into the main feeding grounds.
Right.
But what we're seeing is a lot of the humpback whales are staying in our area in the Jersey Shore, which is probably now like a supplemental feeding ground, because they'll stay in our area on average for 37 days, some even longer. So the whales are here feeding. You guys know from being on the beach, all the menhaden that we have, that's what they feed on. And then a lot of them will continue on to the feeding grounds that they belong to. But we see that a lot of the younger whales, most of the whales that we see here during the season are younger. They're juveniles or subadult whales. And so researchers think one reason why they're staying in the Jersey Shore, well, of course, because we have an abundance of bait fish for them. And they think another reason is because they don't have the competition of the larger whales on the feeding grounds. So that may be one reason why they're here, because they have much more space. You know, they're not competing with the larger whales.
Are they seeing, so two things, you know, when I go down to the British Virgin Islands, and you would say the Caribbean, that is the Caribbean, there's a place called Brewers Bay. And in December, January, there's one, Brewers Bay is very, very deep. It's one of the bay estuaries there that's like, I don't know, 100 feet down. And everybody goes there to watch the whales, you know, so I know that for sure. But if that's the case, they're staying here. Is New Jersey one of the only places, or is it cascading down to Delaware? And I mean, are they migrating up? Is more whales staying the whole East Coast? Because Caribbean goes pretty far south. So, I mean, do you see, did anybody...
Would you say that they're staying in New Jersey more because the climate's getting warmer as we go?
So, well, we think that they're staying in Jersey more because, one, we have the abundance of fish. And maybe it is becoming a supplemental feeding ground. There is some research indicating that the prey in the Gulf of Maine is changing, and so that the whales maybe prefer the fish, the Atlantic menhaden here. So that could be the waters up in the Gulf of Maine are warming very quickly, and so they think that might have something to do with it, why the whales are staying here. But what we noticed is, but typically, whether they stay in Jersey or go on to the feeding grounds, the northern feeding grounds, they will migrate south again to, you know, in the winter months, to go back down to the breeding and calving grounds.
So
That's the humpback. That's the humpback.
The
whales.
humpbacks,
So
right.
normally, under normal circumstances, they'd be out of here by now.
Correct. That's right. But what we see is that the whales that tend to hang around in the wintertime are younger whales, and we believe that that is because they're too young to breed. So it doesn't make sense for them to spend all that energy going way down to the to the warmer waters if they're not breeding. So they kind of stay in this area,
And that kind of just
and also Virginia too as well.
and this kind of just explains why a lot of the whales washing up are juveniles.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones
Right,
that are
but
here.
let me ask you this, Trish, not to put you on the spot. So if that's the case, first of all, I meant, you know, the menhaden, which is, you know, your bait fish. There was a late season. You know, I noticed that they were going all summer long and then really late, so I could see the whales hanging around. But I don't. Is there bait fish now? Menhaden. How do you pronounce it?
Menhaden.
I call it bait fish.
Right. But
Bunker.
I don't
Call it
bunker.
bunker.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're there. I don't see them
I
now.
had no idea what fish we've been talking about
No,
until
no.
you just said
But
bunker.
Trish, so why?
I'm like, oh, those
but
little
what are they
bastards.
eating now, though? What do they eat? They're around here. Like, what are they eating? Like codfish and stripers. Like, what's around?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I mean, I think we still have Atlantic menhaden around. I know they also, I don't know if we have sand eels here, but it's, you know, in the breeding season, so they don't really eat that much anyway. So actually, if a whale was migrating, they come up to the feeding grounds. They'll feed for that about 8 months. And on their way back to the breeding and calving grounds, they eat very little. And when they're at the calving grounds, they don't eat at all. So they'll go a good 3-4 months without eating. So even a female she'll give birth to her calf and nurse her calf and not eat again until she gets up to the feeding grounds.
Oh, okay.
So even though they're feeding, they're not doing massive
Right.
feedings like they do during the feeding season.
Right.
Can you?
So their eating pattern doesn't really even have to change much by staying up here, because they're not going to be eating much anyway. So it's like inconsequential if there's less bait.
Right.
Can you just describe how we would know a whale's feeding, like from a distance, if we can even see that?
Oh, sure. Well, sometimes they do subsurface feeding, so you can't obviously see it from above the surface. But one of our favorite behaviors is when they lunge feed, and that's when the whale comes up from underneath the surface. Like they'll come up right in the middle of a school of fish with their mouths wide open, and they grab. And I have some pictures of that, and they get a huge mouthful of Atlantic menhaden. So, and you can see, like, I love the pictures where you can see the fish that got away on the sides of their mouth, and
Just pouring out.
yeah, and that's tail throwing.
So usually they just bask. The schools like chase them to the surface. Is that?
Yeah, they too. They can go in the center of a school. We sometimes we can predict where a whale will lunge, because as we're watching the whale, we see the surface start bubbling. Like if you see the splashing, which you probably see from the beach, the Atlantic menhaden kind of jumping, trying to get away. We're like, look over there, or where the birds are, because the birds are waiting to get the leftovers from the whale, and that's usually where the whale will surface with its mouth open and get a big mouthful of fish.
And this does happen pretty close to shore sometimes, as you can see from the beach.
Yes.
Is
yes.
this what we're looking for? Right
Yes. So that's a picture of lunge feeding right there.
Wow. That's two whales, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are two whales, and what you see there is the upper jaw, and you can see the baleen plates hanging down from the
Which
side.
are like
So-
the
Yeah, do you wanna show us on the-
hair-like fibers, correct?
Right, correct. So here's my little model that I use on the boat. Right, so there's about 400 baleen plates hanging from the upper jaw.
What do you call them? What do you call them?
Baleen.
Oh, baleen.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're baleen plates.
So what I see and what I think a lot of people see when you say this and talk about it is the Finding Nemo part where they're stuck in the whale's mouth. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And the baleen is actually made out of keratin, which is the same material that your hair and nails are made out of. So it's kind of like a rigid, and it has hair-like fibers along the side. So actually whales, although some people think maybe you can get swallowed or eaten by a humpback whale, it's actually physically impossible, because their
Really?
yes. Because although their mouth is so big, their esophagus is only about 8 inches in diameter. So the size of like a big cantaloupe. So they can't swallow you.
Oh my God.
You can get stuck in the mouth if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but they can't swallow you.
Wow. Now, I thought the baleen plates were specific to like filter feeding whales.
Yes, well, it's a type of filter feeding, because what they do is they don't have teeth. They have the baleen plates instead. And when they take a big gulp of fish, they obviously get ocean water in their mouth as well. And the hair-like fibers along the side will filter out the water.
Okay.
And the fish get trapped inside. So they just swallow the fish, and all the water comes out through the sides, through the hairs of the baleen plates.
It's like a filter,
Correct, yes.
like a sponge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
neat.
I saw pictures of the whales on the beach, and the inner mouth, the teeth, the baleen plates like fold and flop when their mouths are open on the beach. It is just hair, right? It looks
Yeah, it's like, it's I actually have a sample on the boat, but I didn't bring it with me tonight. But it actually looks kind of like horsehair, and they can be pretty long. So they're all very, very close. There's about 400, so they're really tight together, and the hairs make kind of like a strainer. But yeah, it looks a lot like horsehair, kind of coarse, like a horse's tail, like that.
So let me ask you this. So when the bunker are going down, I know that there's big bluefish and stripers. So do these whales eat that too? I mean, how are they going to differentiate that? I mean,
Well, I mean, I imagine
know?
sometimes they get larger fish by accident, but usually they're going for a big school of fish, so they kind of go up in the middle.
I wonder
know,
I wonder if they eat them by or they
Yeah,
don't eat them.
Could a whale like choke on like too big a fish?
We don't know. Yeah.
I think the whale would probably spit it out.
Okay.
I think that's what would happen. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure there's been an unfortunate bluefish that ended up in the mouth of a whale.
well,
but-
when
I heard whale vomit is a valuable material.
oh yes, they
Don't
make
they use it-
perfume out of it.
Well, what's the old joke? What's the lowest thing in the ocean?
Whale shit.
Well, yeah, whale poop.
Well, what's one of the most important things in the ocean?
Why?
Whale shit.
Whale poo.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
It
Good
actually.
transition, Cashmore.
So let's transition to this part, because it's obvious why we're talking about these whales. There's like a big issue with how many of them have been popping up, but to think the conversation has like in the mainstream strayed from what really matters, and that's the whales themselves and why they are so special. So why is it that they are so important in the environment locally?
Right. So whales actually play a very key role in keeping our oceans clean, and actually keeping our atmosphere clean as well. So whales are at the top of the food chain. And as I mentioned, whale poo is actually very important, because when the whales feed, they also obviously, defecate, right? They poo in the ocean. And whale feces is very, very rich in iron and other nutrients, which promotes phytoplankton blooms. So phytoplankton blooms provide nourishment for zooplankton and then other fish. So it feeds the ocean, the marine life in the ocean. But phytoplankton blooms also produce 50% of the oxygen that we have. And it also removes 40% of the CO2 out of our atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
So it plays a very key role. I mean, it's the equivalent. And another thing that humpback whales do is they hold a lot of CO2 in their bodies. So they're very massive, and they hold about on average 33 tons of CO2 per great whale in their bodies. So when they die and they sink to the bottom of the ocean floor, they take that carbon with them. And it stays there for centuries. So it's actually removing carbon dioxide from our atmosphere as well.
Right. That's about how much Taylor Swift's airplane kicks out a year, about 30 tons of carbon.
It's actually the equivalent of 4 Amazon rainforests or 1.7 trillion trees, the amount of carbon that a whale will take out
One
of
One whale?
Yes.
That I can't even compute that. That's insane.
Whales in general, not
Okay.
one whale. One whale takes
okay.
about 33 tons.
Okay.
But cumulatively, the great whales take that much out.
That just goes to show how interconnected it all is. Like, it's not just the Amazon that's important, just like it's not just the health of the ocean that's important.
Exactly.
It's such a delicate balance, and when you start messing with that, like, even when I wanted to ask you about like the barnacles and like what role that plays.
So that's very interesting. The barnacles on the humpback whale, I forget the exact name, but they're particular to humpback whales. So they live only on humpback whales, and they actually they'll leave scars on the whales. So the whales, that's one of the reasons why we think that whales breach, because they can carry like hundreds of pounds of barnacles on their body.
Yeah, wait, so they don't breach for fishing. That's primarily for barnacles or some other reason?
So we think it's one to remove the barnacles, because when they slam on the surface of the water, it dislodges the barnacles, comes off, and they need to keep their skin very hydrodynamic. It has to be very smooth so that they can be efficient, swimming in the ocean. And we think too, it can get uncomfortable if they have too many. So they, they'll breach to clean slough their body, exfoliate their skin.
Are they known to show behavior where they help each other get it off by like rubbing or?
Oh, that's a good question. I know dolphins do behaviors like that. I'm not sure about the humpback whales, because humpback whales, once they leave their mothers, they're pretty much solitary, so they don't travel in big family pods. But they do interact with other whales, so it's possible that they do that. I mean, I know that they also breach to communicate with other whales.
They call them transient pods, right? The loners, I believe.
Right. Well, humpback whales generally remain on their own after they leave their mothers. So, but they do every humpback whale will return to the same feeding ground that its mother belonged to. So each feeding ground is like an individual population, a genetically diverse population. But they don't really stay, they won't stay with mates or with other whales for life. They'll be transient. They'll come and go. And sometimes we see a whale hook up with one or two other whales for a day or a couple days or even a couple hours, and they move on. So they don't have those tight social bonds like a dolphin.
How long have you been doing this for?
I think 3 or 4 years now.
So are these whales tagged at all? Like, do you have whales that you identify and you say, oh, that's Mary and she's back again? Like, do you
recognize whales?
Yes, yeah, we definitely can recognize individual whales. We don't tag whales like some other animals, but what we do is we identify them by the tail flukes. So the bottom of
can you pull a tail fluke up?
Yeah, pull up the tail fluke. I have a tail fluke of squirt. The underside of the tail flukes has an individual pattern that's different to each whale. It's much like a human fingerprint.
There it is.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's squirt. So I can recognize squirt right away. You see those little dots on the top, the circles?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's mostly white. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful tail fluke. That's of a calf that came into our waters in 2021 he first appeared with his mother, which is very unusual.
Can you name them?
Yeah, we're starting to name them. Yes,
Squirt's a good
actually,
name.
scientifically, they don't have names. They have numbers, and that calf is New York City 0226.
That's way more boring than Squirt.
I know, so we like Squirt. And so you see that pattern. Each humpback whale has a different pattern. Some of them are mostly black, any combination of black and white with different markings in it. And so we use those to identify individuals. And we can also use the dorsal fin, but that's a little bit more difficult. Each dorsal fin has a different shape as well.
Trish, I want one other question. Where do you find these? Like normally, are they like a mile out? Is there a general area, or 10 miles out? Or I mean, we see them. When we see them, they're close. But where's majority of the time are they at? Do they hang out in one area, or just they follow the bait, or like what's the deal? Anywhere? They could be anywhere.
Yeah, they can be anywhere. They definitely follow the bait, so we look for that. But generally, we see them relatively close to shore, within 1 to 3 miles of shore.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, as you see, like from working on the beach, like sometimes even closer than that. But we have to look for them every day. They don't necessarily stay in one particular place, But we're just out there looking, and we have like a network, that lets us know. Like other fishing captains and stuff will let us know if they see the whales.
So how many? So you have the names. How many? Individuals are there in this area, like for the summer? Is there like a population of 20, 30, just 3, or does it change? It's like you got 5 in 1 week and then another 5 the next week. Like, how does that all?
Yeah, it's very, very fluid. It always changes. I mean, I know that in the New York City Humpback Whale Catalog, that's been cataloging whales in our area since 2011, we have we're up to 300 whales now. So those are 300 individuals that have come into our waters, and some just come 1 year and never come back. Some have been coming back for like up to 10 years in a row now. Like there's a whale, Jerry, that's been coming for 10 years in a row.
Wow.
This little guy, Squirt, he came with his mom. They spent the summer, and we watched the mom. I have pictures of the mother teaching the whale how to lunge feed, and I had the whale breaching, and we didn't know if we would ever see him again. And he came back the following year, which was last year. This season, we saw Squirt many times, and we hope that he'll come back again. But we have 300 in the catalog that we've identified, but there's not really any way to tell. I think there's much more in our area, but if they're further out, correct. We just may not be seeing them, but we've identified 300.
You said it was weird that Squirt came with his mom.
Yes.
What is that behavior? Why is that weird?
So it's unusual because we don't usually see a mother and calf pair. I guess normally the mothers with their calves will go all the way to their main feeding ground. So since the Jersey Shore is not really a feeding ground, we don't have moms and calves stopping in this area. But she did stop with her calf, this Squirt there, and they stayed for about 3 weeks. So that was really a lot of fun to see them, to watch them interact. And
about how big it was Squirt when this picture was taken?
So that picture was taken this year, so he's probably about, let's see, he's probably around 20 feet, maybe 25 feet. How many tons would he weigh?
I don't know.
We're not the ones to be answering that question.
Wait, I have to do my math. He's probably
Maybe 2, 3. What do you think?
No, they're
More than that.
Yeah, they're definitely more than that.
Now, is he still considered a juvenile?
Yes, definitely still.
How long does it take these whales to get to full?
Right,
full
till
grown?
they mature. Well, it's probably about 10 or 12 years.
Wow, really that long?
Yeah.
Is that before they breed?
Yes.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they're like puppies, but like
No, they got
2 years. They're like,
they-
ready
what's
to
their-
go.
And what's their longevity?
Yes, they have a very long lifespan. They live upwards of 70 years. Some researchers think they live even longer, to 90 years or more.
And that's like just something that makes this whole situation that's going along tragic, because the juveniles are the ones dying. So this issue is like a reflection of something happening like 90 years from now.
Right.
Wow,
yes.
wow, I didn't think about it.
So
that way.
Trish, so let me ask you this. I've been here on the Jersey Shore for 30 years longer. I don't remember, and again, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I don't remember ever any whales coming up on the beach in the summertime. The wintertime. Even in the summertime, maybe one. I've seen them out there because I used to fish a lot. I used to fish twice a week, go out to the 30 miles out, and you go out to there's a riser wreck, and you'd see a dead whale out there. So I mean, I've seen them,
Right.
and the sharks usually eat them. The carcass floats around, so it's not unusual. So my question is, number one is, there's always a whole there may be a population of dead whales floating around all the time.
Yeah.
But you would think that I don't know if so is there more dead whales now, or is it just that the whales that been always dying are just coming up on shore? And, or so is there a difference? I mean, I've never seen that. We would think that over the 30 years, they would have floated up. The weather patterns and the currents, I don't think changed that much. Yeah. So anyway, I was just, so you never, the amount this year, is that unusual?
Yeah, the amount this year is extremely high. We're up to, actually yesterday was 10 whales in the New York, New Jersey area.
In what time frame?
In less than 3 months, since December.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There was, so let's see, around Valentine's Day, that whale was number 7 for New Jersey. And there was 2 in New York, and now this one that washed up in Sandy Hook, so that'll be 8 for New Jersey. And so that's very, very high, and it's up to 24 along the entire East Coast. So we you're absolutely right that it's not normal. We've never really seen this many humpback whales washing ashore dead. And there's actually what NOAA calls an unusual mortality event that's currently happening with humpback whales.
And NOAA, but what does the acronym stand for?
Right, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
And this is an unprecedented amount of deaths?
Yes, it's it's an unusual mortality event, which is when an unexpected and significant portion of a marine mammal population dies. And it demands an investigation. So this has been going on. They call it a UME, unusual mortality event. It started in 2016 for humpback whales, but it's really this year where the mortalities are showing up on our shores more so than the previous 4 or 5 years.
So this isn't related to what happened, or is related maybe to what happened, or we don't know. What is the 2016 event? Is its own thing, or is it connected? Do we know?
Well, it's continuous.
Okay.
So from 2016, they've been seeing higher than expected amounts of humpback whales dying, and they've been investigating it. Now we're seeing it, here in our waters. Like the average is even less than 7 a year, and we've had 8 already. We're only 2 months into the year. So it's very concerning. In addition, we're also having a lot of dolphin strandings. There's just been 4 recently. 5 actually. One just stranded in Avalon yesterday.
I wasn't even aware about the dolphins.
Yeah, there was. It was really sad.
There was
actually.
like 2 or 3 at one point, right?
Right. There was 3 that were caught up in Sandy Hook, and they were trapped at the low tide, and they died. And then a few days later, another dolphin was found up there, and they think that it was related with those 4, like it was with those original 3, but just got separated and died a few days later. And now one just washed up yesterday in Avalon. So that's 5 dolphins. And
yeah, we've had times where, I don't know how many, 7, 8 years ago, we had like a whole bunch of dolphins. Remember they washed up on shore in the summer. But let me ask you this: is it? What's the in our area? I guess the East Coast going down to Caribbean. What is the estimated count of humpback whales, and has it increased? Because in other words, maybe there's more strandings because there's
the population might be higher,
right? Yeah. Or is it not? Do they have any idea? Like, is there a way to gauge that, or no?
That's a really good question. I actually would have to look up the population amounts like along the East Coast of the humpback whales, but I do know that currently, like in the winter months, we definitely have less whales than we do in the summer. Like, this is not our prime season. Like, if people go whale watching in Alaska, if we had a lot of humpback whales here, we would be out there whale watching. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, the majority of our whales are down in the breeding and calving grounds. It's just the younger ones here. So, but the population, it's very healthy. I think it's around, I'm thinking 20,000, but I would really have to check that, of the humpback whales on the East Coast.
Yeah, well, it's so they these whales that floated up. There's really no way for them to. Have anybody come up with any answers? I know they're doing. I guess we would call it what kind of autopsy?
Necropsy. Yeah.
They have no. Nobody's found any evidence yet of anything like a virus or.
Something that I heard is that by the time that it gets to the place where they do necropsies, the whales are so deteriorated that it's hard to do studies. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yes, that is often the case. They decompose relatively quickly, so oftentimes by the time they wash ashore, they're too far decomposed to do, really deep analysis, of the tissues and things like that. But the results that we have so far, the conclusive results have been for about half of the whales were a vessel strike, and you can clearly see the bruising, like in the tissue and the muscle layers. You can see bruising. I don't know if it's determined whether they were struck while they were alive and then died, or if they were dead and then got struck. That's one question that needs to be looked at. And we don't know the other. So about 50% of the necropsies indicate vessel strike was the cause of death. The other 50%, they're not really sure. So we are, there's tissue samples there being studied. A lot of people want the inner ear to be looked at. But that's like almost impossible to do because, like you said, of the decomposition. So it's really complicated to actually definitively determine the cause of death.
I got a study for you then. Here, you guys are going to do the study, and the
study
study is
here comes a joke.
No, it's no joke. No, so we have you have New York City, which is one of the biggest ports in the whole world, and you have the shipping lanes, which are 8 miles out, and these tankers, right? They're huge. But they actually have new technology now, and they have this ball in the front that knocks down the wave. There's like no wash in the back. I mean, no wake. And they're fast. They're doing 25, 27 knots, which is about, it's like
miles an hour,
25 to 30 miles an hour. They're flying. And, and I wonder if, again, just throwing things out, that'd be an interesting study, if I was a biologist.
You're saying that like the no wake is whales?
Maybe these whales, first of all, whales could be injured.
The boat could be more quiet as a result of that.
In other words, is there more traffic? Like lately, say we had this coronavirus and everything slowed down. There wasn't a lot of ships. Maybe, and then now all of a sudden there's more. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it. I'm just throwing it out that I wonder, like you said, if half of them are boat strikes, but you still don't know if they were dead already and got hit. But I could tell you, those things could sneak up on you real fast. I wonder if the boat traffic, maybe it's increased now. And just, asking.
That's really interesting point that you bring up because Noah, I believe that it's a law where the vessels have to slow down to 10 knots or less in the shipping channels because the North Atlantic right whale, which is the most critically endangered animal right now on our planet, migrates right through those shipping channels. So there's a law where the vessels have to slow down because they know that if they're going 15 knots or higher, that's where mortality will take place, like at that speed. But if they're going slower, 10 knots or less, most of the whales will survive any type of strike if they're not going that fast.
Well, I could tell you from my experience that the separation for the ship lane going into New York Harbor is probably maybe I don't know, maybe Point Pleasant, off of Point Pleasant, 8 miles out. There's a buoy out there, a big one, and and you could see it. So that's probably where they have it. But after that, they could go wherever they want. So, but that's interesting. I didn't know they had to slow down. That would help. Yeah, there's a big separation marker, and there's a mile in between both shipping lanes. By the way, it's pretty interesting. And then I don't know what the width of the lane is, but so they have incoming and outgoing.
With whales being transient and pretty much loners, do they have a way of communicating, and are they smart enough to let each other know that something could be happening over here?
Yeah, so they definitely do communicate with other whales. They do that with some behaviors like breaching. We see them do peck slapping, where their pectoral flippers are about 16 feet long, the longest of any whale species. And that actually, they rotate almost 360 degrees. So they can really spin and flip. That's why when they come up out of the water, they can spin their bodies because of those pectoral flippers. And we see them often slapping them on the surface of the water. Now that sound travels miles underneath the water. And that's one way they communicate, or slapping their tails. They also communicate through sound. And I'm sure, humpback whales are actually famous for the songs that they sing which are actually really complicated. They're really complex. They're actually like write songs. I don't know much about like music, but humpback whale songs are very interesting because only the males will sing the song. And there's one male in a feeding ground, like that's an individual population. One male in that feeding ground will compose a song, and all the males in that feeding population will sing the same song. And sometimes they'll sing it for 20 minutes, or the song can be 20 minutes long, and sometimes they'll sing for hours at a time. And we often see them singing the songs on the breeding grounds. And so, like, scientists believe that that's a way that they can attract mates.
And I read this when we were originally looking into this story. Do the songs change over time?
Yeah, so each season, a new song will be composed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And is it always the same whale that composes the song?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess if that whale is still like the head whale, the alpha whale. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's very interesting because one whale will be the one that composes the song, and all the others sing the same.
Something I'm thinking about while we're talking about these whales, especially humpbacks that are kind of loners, that they still do communicate and have at least in some way these social bonds. I've read that certain species of whales will beach themselves if they think they're sick to maintain the health of their pod. And I'm just wondering now if that is something that could be happening, whether it's like Catchmar said, is there a virus, or maybe these whales might believe they have a virus. Are humpback whales known to do that, to beach themselves, to kind of separate themselves from the population?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think humpback whales are. I know the whales that live in those large pods. Sometimes that can happen with them, where you see like mass strandings, where one goes maybe because it's sicker, and then the others follow. But I don't think that that's a typical thing for humpback whales.
Okay.
So they don't travel in packs. They communicate via sound. Do you know how good a humpback whale's sound or hearing is?
Oh, that's a really good question. They communicate and hear at very low frequencies, and they can hear from what I believe to be miles underneath the water.
Can
their
you
sound
hear the
travels
sound
far.
them singing?
Yeah, you can actually. You can hear it. It's described as kind of haunting. It's low, like moans and grunts, and you can definitely hear it. And there's like scientists that are in acoustics and all that actually are really studying the communication of humpback whales and the sounds, and it's really fascinating.
Would you describe it, like, would you say it's pretty, like the sound?
Well, of course,
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily listen to it, like, on my phone. Like, there's like, recordings of the sounds, but I actually heard it once. I heard the whale make the sound once, and it was just kind of like it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's actually, it's very different from dolphins, who have that very high pitched kind of clicking. So the humpback whales are much, much lower,
And
deeper.
slow.
Yeah.
Do they do
yeah.
any communicating outside of just the singing?
Well, yes, they do
Other
make
than
sounds.
like the
Flapping.
Okay.
Right, so they do make sounds. So they make the sounds by blowing air through their blowhole.
Okay.
And another interesting thing about how they do, even though they're kind of solitary, they do work together, like in the breeding ground, in the feeding grounds rather, where they do bubble net feeding. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Is that where they swim in a circle to kind of corral the fish?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they do that. They do that in the Gulf of Maine. Actually, I can't wait to get up there to see it myself in person. But so it really that's actually it's not an innate behavior. It's a learned behavior. Not all humpback whales do it. So that shows you how they communicate. They teach one another. They work together. And there's a lead whale that directs them all, and they start swimming in that pattern, blowing out bubbles.
Do you think that might, because that's something that's very common with dolphins, right?
About working together.
That specific type of hunting, the bubble
Circling. They
Circling.
do that. They do that all the time. Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's something that like a clever humpback like picked up from a group of dolphins at some point,
Well, the bubble net feeding is a little bit different because it actually they all swim together in a pattern, right, with one lead whale leading it, and they blow bubbles through their blowhole, and it starts forming the shape of a P. They blow all these bubbles into the water to kind of confuse and the bait fish and corral them closer and closer in a bigger bait ball. And then once the lead whale thinks that they're tight enough, he gives the signal and they all lunge up at the same time with their mouths open and eat the fish.
Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it in person.
Because it only happens up in Maine.
It happens in the Gulf of Maine and
Okay.
the other feeding grounds, yeah, in Canada and Greenland. But
That's got to be pretty.
yeah, I definitely want to get up there to see it for sure.
So Trish, these whales that all came on shore, maybe you said, are they all males or females? And what do you generally see, like when we see in the summertime, are they predominantly males or 50-50 female males? Or so what has been coming up, and what's the general mix usually?
Yeah, I think, well, we have just an equal mix of males and females in the area. The ones that stranded, I think it's, I don't think it's
50-50.
predominantly one or the other. I think it's 50-50. I know they're
Okay.
predominantly younger, subadults, although there was the one that washed up on Lido Beach in New York. That whale was named Luna. He was a very, very well-known whale. He's been in our area for 40 years. They've been
my God.
observing him for 40 years in the area, and he was one of the whales that stranded recently.
Wow.
So does he always stick around here, or he also follows a migration pattern?
Yeah, they all will follow the migration pattern. It's just whether they stop in our area and hang out for a while or continue on to their feeding grounds. But Luna belonged to the Gulf of Maine feeding ground, I believe, and they've been seeing him for 40 years. But of course, they have to go through here to get there. You know, it's further north from us.
I didn't know that one of the whales was a known whale.
Yeah.
Was he cataloged?
I believe he's in the Gulf of Maine catalog.
But not the New York one?
I'm not sure. I don't think I'm actually not sure. All I know is for sure is that he's been known to researchers studying the whales for 40 years now. So he's been frequenting our waters for 40 years.
You said that the whales wanted to remove barnacles because they want to be hydrophobic, but I noticed all the notches on its chin and
Yeah.
like the fins
That could
are
be
kind
from
of,
a giant squid.
are kind of rough. Is that just a representation of barnacles, or is that a?
They eat that giant. Yeah, asking what her predators are.
Actually, these bumps here on the top of the rostrum, these are called tubercles. And they're about the size of a golf ball. And inside each one of these, there's one hair follicle.
Is it the ones on the lower jaw too?
There's some tubercles on the lower jaw as well.
So that's its hair, technically.
So yeah, it's like a hair follicle. Yeah, you can see it there in the picture. And each one, if you there's a little arrow pointing down, and that's where you can see the little hair. It's a very fine hair, and they believe it's used for like sensory perception. Yeah, there's a hair in there.
So almost like a whisker.
Yes, exactly. And, and they are mammals, so
Yeah, they
they
really
do
are
have
just-
hair at some point in their life. And then you see those circles there are the scars left from the barnacles.
Wow,
coming
that
off.
perfect circle is
Yeah.
from that looks like graffiti.
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
does.
It looks like also it could just be one of the hairs.
So Trish, other killer whales, what's their
They're predators.
So that's it. That's a good question. We know that humpback whales do come in contact with killer whales at some point in their lives, and it's interesting because the killer whales like to nibble on the dorsal fin of the humpback whales. So we see some humpback whales that have notches taken out of their dorsal fin or with no dorsal fin at all, but the killer whales are not really big enough to actually. Maybe a young humpback whale they could fall prey to a killer whale, but not a full-grown one. So really, the only predators, so to speak, would be humans, would be anthropogenic causes.
So the giant squid don't eat them?
No,
Those
I
movies,
was
They really
those
don't
really
movies.
hoping that was
they
true.
don't have any predators. They really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, their biggest threats are humans by our behaviors, what we do, with getting caught entangled in fishing nets and vessel strikes and pollution. That's really their biggest threats because we don't have whaling anymore. So that, of course, when whaling was going on, we really decimated the population.
So let me ask you, this in March now, coming up next month, in March and April, you get a huge amount of harbor seals. I think they're harbor seals that come into the area. And I've seen thousands of them. I used to go down to, what's the inlet below Barnegat Inlet? It's Little Egg Township,
Little
Little
Lake
Lake Harbor.
Harbor.
And there's a Robert Wood Johnson, I think, has a center there, and they're all up in there. Do you guys go? Do you guys follow that? Because they migrate here until like June, and they're out of here. But there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I see them in the bay a lot. So what's the story on that? Do you deal with
So-
that too?
Well, there's actually a lot of seals up in Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
And they're out in the rocks out there.
yeah.
But for us, for our boat, it's too far. Like once you get up to the hook, you have to go way inside the bay to get to
okay.
the seals. So for us, it's not cost effective to go. But I know in Long Island, they do run seal trips, which is really cool. They just have different terrain, different marine environment where they can easily access where the seals are.
I'll start in March if I can, if the weather's nice, to go for clamming, and I'll go out near the inlet, and I see tons of them all lined up, and then. But once I went down to Little Lake Harbor, and it was just amazing. I probably had about 300-400 of them, and they all clear out of here when the sharks come in June. It's really that's when you know the sharks are here.
Did you hear about the seal and brick?
No. What?
Yes, yesterday the seal was a little confused and was crossing Route 35 in Brick.
Oh my
Really?
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
So they hear.
I was
so they
right
hear.
around there. Like I deliver pizzas over there. That could have been like.
Well,
Wow.
they put the signs up in Spring Lake. They just put them up, and they say,
Seal crossing?
Don't mess with the seals.
Right.
Actually, it's a big fine.
Yeah.
You got to stay away from them because they're tired,
Right.
and they come up on the beach and they tell you don't mess with them, leave them alone. And I think they could probably take your foot right off if they want.
Yeah,
So-
they have some sharp teeth, but it's really important to. That's a little squirt there, spy hopping. That's,
that's
when
a
they
great
come up
picture.
and they look around. You actually can see his eyes, and he's checking us out on the boat.
Oh, wow.
That was the first day that we saw him back this past season.
So
That's called spy hopping.
he'll just like
Spy
float,
hopping, yeah, that's spy
And-
hopping.
he'll just keep his head up like that.
They don't. They stay up for a little bit and come back down, but they're literally coming up to see what's going on above water.
Like they're actually like taking like a little survey.
yeah. They're actually exploring the environment above
I wonder
the
like
water.
what's going through their head when
I
they
know.
see a
What if
boat
he's-
or like when they get close enough to the shore where they can like kind of see like
Yeah.
the lights of the pier or something. They're like, what is that other world?
Some whales are really curious about us. Some whales come. It's what they call mugging, and that's when a whale comes really close to the boat. Like we've had like where the whales, when they exhale and they have that spray, like people have gotten sprayed with the water from the surface of their blowhole, and when they're that close, obviously we turn the engines off because we don't want to accidentally harm them. But they'll come and check us out and swim under the boat and.
I remember my rookie year up on the beach. A humpback whale was breaching out like right off the sandbar. So two of my senior guards took a boat out and rowed next to it, and they could have like reached out and touched it with an oar. They got so close.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just chilling there, like checking them out.
I want to get the video that I showed you. Can we do that?
Is that a brown?
No, but the picture that you took of him,
Is it on YouTube?
I emailed it to you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What
No,
video
but
is it?
it's of you, and I wanted to ask you the question: was the picture when you saw Jesse on the rescue board? For everyone that doesn't know, Trish got an amazing picture of our friend Jesse next to a whale, and
Which is also you uploaded into this Google Drive.
I saw it.
Trish added it too.
Were you paddleboarding before that, or did that inspire you?
Oh, so I went out paddleboarding that day. That was a really interesting day. It was very calm, and I knew there was a lot of bait fish around because actually our fishing boat was there.
This is a great picture, by the way.
What an incredible picture this is.
That was amazing. Just out there, the whales were just here lunge feeding, and I managed to catch that shot.
So were you
see
paddleboarding
little
this
fish.
day, or
Yeah.
No, that day with Jesse Brown was over the summer. The day that I was paddleboarding and the whale was in the area, that day was Columbus Day, actually.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like October or
Yeah. Yep, that was in October. So I was just out there paddleboarding, and the whale just, came around, and there was the fishing boats were there. There was a lot of guys out on kayaks fishing.
Where is this picture at? Give me what's in the background here? Is that
I
land?
think that's just like distortion.
No, that's it's blurry.
What's that? There's a marker there.
That's Atlantic City. That's
No.
England, Cashmore.
No. It's a
No.
marker. I mean, it looks like somebody was. I mean,
That might be like a weather buoy or something right there.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't get it.
This, I think, is just the horizon.
You don't
Yeah.
remember? Is that you on the paddleboard?
Yeah.
You don't remember where that
No,
was?
I know there was a boat. There was a boat out there. I don't know what that is.
That's probably
actually.
fishing. They probably had a gill net. Yeah.
Was this a humpback that you got next to?
Yeah, so that was a humpback. Actually, you're actually not allowed to approach marine mammals. Like, you can't get within 100. You're supposed to stay 100 feet away from them.
But not if they come to you.
Right. So you obviously don't want to get in their way. But this humpback whale was oftentimes came up. Like, I didn't always know where he was, but he always knew where I was. And like you can see, like, he was actually coming up behind me. Like, I was in front of the whale, and I heard the blow, and I turned around, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Were you nervous? Oh wow.
You gotta lower that a little. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I went around the fishing boat, Miss Belmore was down there fishing, and as I came around the front, on the other side were the kayakers that were fishing, and I heard someone calling out. That was my son's math teacher, which was like so funny to bump into him like there. So this is the video he took.
So you
See, that's a treble. See that hook that you throw that in there and grab the bunker. Foul hook him with that hook.
Oh, he got
That's
a
what-
huge
that's what you
fish
just
that day.
throw
They
it
were
right
getting
in
And you throw it into the bunker and you go, and you grab it and then you put it in your live
What
well.
sound do you make?
Yeah, and then you put them on another hook, a big hook, and throw it in there and you catch stripers.
They got huge stripers that day.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
The
And
beginning of the
that's
year,
fair.
you get 40-pounders.
And there was the whale coming up behind me. Yeah,
that must be so cool to be that close in the middle.
it
of
was amazing. It really was.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
You know how many people come up to me on the lifeguard stand on the north end and go, "Is that lady out there okay?" When you're on your your paddleboard,
Yeah, you guys
they're like,
know I love.
You should go get her.
Do I really go out that far? That's what they say.
I
It
mean,
doesn't-
to the Bennies, it looks like you're on your way across the ocean.
Sometimes I worry if you guys are gonna get mad at me, but
I don't care.
I trust you guys.
You gifted us 2 great lifeguards, so
Aw.
it's the least we could do is let you do what you want.
Oh,
as long
thank you.
as,
I'm working on
within
a
reason.
third.
Within reason.
I'm working on a third.
We can't wait.
Yeah,
Hopefully
we gotta
he'll
get him
follow suit.
involved.
Yeah, definitely.
Is he a junior lifeguard now? How old is he?
Yeah, he just turned 15.
Okay.
And he's starting doing JLG again.
When's his birthday?
Oh, he's coming
He
back.
just,
The
his
return.
birthday
Just
was
turned
just
it.
a few days ago, the 24th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The return of Joey to JLG's.
Hopefully,
excited.
yeah. We want him to follow in his brother's footsteps for sure.
Good. Just be like,
Keep it in the
you're doing at
family.
least 1 year, kid.
Gotta get sand between your toes.
That's all it takes, right?
Yeah. No, I love them working there. I love the beach patrol. You guys are awesome.
Oh, we do our best.
We try.
You do a good job. Great job.
Thank you.
Safest beach on the Jersey Shore.
Hey.
That's also what our friend Peggy says.
Yeah.
You know Peggy?
Peggy.
You know Peggy,
Of
right?
course I know Peggy.
I'm dying to get Peggy in here.
Oh, Peggy's
be
a big
incredible.
whale lover. She was at the rally.
Oh, she.
Oh yeah, she
um,
was right front and center.
I don't know about these guys. I got to get going within the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, we could pack
But
it. That's good. I'm not-
before we get out of here, tell us about that rally a little bit. What the goal is, and kind of why you're trying to spread awareness about this issue before we wrap up.
Okay, so very quickly, it was after these whales started washing up. It was in January after the 6th one. I was really concerned. And I was like, something's like really wrong. Like, but I don't know what to do. I felt, even though I work, on a whale watching boat, I didn't know what to do. And a woman reached out to me on Messenger, and she said she wanted to have a rally on World Whale Day to raise awareness. And we quickly started talking. And that was our focus. We felt like a lot of people don't know what's going on here at the shore, and about all these whales dying. And we felt like we needed to sound the alarm and make people aware of what was going on. So that's why we reached out to the mayor of Point Pleasant, who just gave us the green light to hold the rally there. And at first we didn't really have, I was going to speak about the whales, and we had one other speaker. The mayor wasn't even going to be there. And then, kind of unfortunately, right before the rally on February 13th, whale number 7 washed up right in Manasquan, like right along where we were going to hold this rally. And there was a lot of press coverage. And then, word just really got out. People, we had all the speakers want to come, like the congressmen come and speak. And we actually had to turn speakers away. And where we originally thought we were going to have maybe 50 people come. I mean, we were just amazed at that.
Yeah, it was a big crowd.
It was a huge crowd. Like some people say it was about 1,000 people there, which
Wow.
was really amazing to see that came out to support the whales and to raise awareness to what's happening to the whales. And that's really our focus, because they're so important to our environment, and they're so important to our oceans, and we really need to do whatever we can to help save them and find out
Absolutely.
what's causing these deaths and what we need to do to stop it,
And-
because we
and-
need the whales.
And work together to figure that all out. not
Absolutely, absolutely.
fingers and try to push blame on each other.
Yeah, you know,
Get the right people on the job and figure it
right.
out.
This is I mean, this is not a political issue. This is an environmental issue. There's something drastically wrong with our marine mammals, especially the whales. And you know, if we don't have whales, we don't have life on planet Earth. You know, we need healthy oceans to live, and we need the whales to give us healthy oceans. So we all really need to be concerned and to work together to find out what's going on and to work to stop it. To help, we have to save our whales. And as a matter of fact, that's why I named the rally wasn't Save the Whales. It's not just the whales. The whales could be in Canada or in Alaska. Like, no, these are our whales. Like, these are whales like that we talked about that frequent our waters every summer, and we have a responsibility to protect them.
Sean, what about whales' lives matter too? Is
They
that too
do.
political?
Well, that's
See,
a little
I'm bad.
political. I don't
See,
like that.
I,
No.
That's rough.
No,
Trish, you should be on my scrubbing up. We get real political.
No,
So-
I
No,
went
but
over that chant. Well,
I
save
think that
our whales.
I
That's
think
the
that
chant.
I
Save
think
our
that
whales.
I think that a point is well made. There's a lot. I was a biology major, and you know they teach you, and you get an idea, a sense that the whole world, that everything's connected, and you know one species adds on to next. Like in other words, like a good example. The Amazon rainforest would not exist if it wasn't for the Sahara Desert, which wouldn't exist if there wasn't a big ocean there.
Which
there was shellfish
the
and
dust plumes like supply the nutrients.
right, yeah,
for
and that comes
the
and
Amazon.
when you're in the Caribbean. I see it in like June. The wind changes, and you start getting. Like I remember waking up once, and it was like this yellow stuff all over the place. I'm like, "Is that pollen?" And the guy goes, "No, that's from the Sahara Desert." I go, "Get the hell out of here!" That's all the way across the ocean, and you know, so everything adds on to everything else, you know. And what was really sad, and you know, was the when before oil was discovered, most of the oil in the world was used for
whale blubber.
whale blubber for
Right.
oil heating and lights. So you know, thank God. I know they still fish them. I think what's that Greenpeace? What's the one that go after them? You know, the Japanese don't they still harvest
right.
them?
I think it's
Mickey
still,
whales.
I think
they eat
Japanese
them.
and Greenland are like the only places that I know.
They eat them, don't they?
Greenland, it's like a traditional thing about
Yeah.
fishing and
Yeah.
right. The
coming to
indigenous
age.
people.
Yeah.
Some are allowed to hunt them. The indigenous people.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
of their culture, and they use the entire whale.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
I like what you said about save our whales, because, you know, when we're talking about a planet and like an environmental like system that's so delicately balanced that has to do with everything going on all at once, it's easy to forget that the only way to get to where we need to go is to by focusing on like right in front of us, tending our own garden.
Exactly.
You know, like mow your lawn, then eventually like everyone else will make the neighborhood look pretty.
Right. Exactly.
Good point.
So we really appreciate you coming on here and what you're doing about
This was fantastic.
Thank
we,
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Super informative. We appreciate you giving birth to 2, hopefully 3 amazing Seaside Heights lifeguards. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
And I just want to say we're starting a website. It's going to be saveourwhales.org, where there's going to be a lot of information about whales and the other marine life in our area, and links to information about what's going on. So look for that.
Yeah, we will be
right.
happy to update all of our listeners on that when it's all ready to go. So
Yeah.
just keep us in touch, and you're
Okay.
welcome back anytime.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank
right,
you.
sign
It was
us
a
out.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Sign us out.
Stay
Tad.
out.
And stay
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 alive.
alive.
alive. Oh, we didn't. We would. The
She knew
one
it, though.
guest we wouldn't have had to explain it to.
Go ahead, finish it up.
All right, we're out. Later, guys.
Did you know that?